Hello. I think I think it's live. I don't know. I guess I should check to make sure. I think it's live. I think it's good. I think it's live. I think it's good. Yeah. Awesome. There's background noise. I have a fan on because it's very warm here today in Michigan. It's like 70 degrees on March 4th. I don't know what the average temperature is, but I guess I can look that up. Historical average 46 degrees. Weird year, weird times. But nice to walk around in, that's for sure. So, I'm doing a live stream today. With, on a different project that I haven't shown yet. Which is, I should probably have a browser. So I can show you. Studio mode. Oh boy. Sorry, I should have done this ahead of time. How do I now? I think I click this. Hey, there we go. So this is a project I worked on and I got it functional for myself. It's an app I made for myself where I log each time I floss my teeth. And how can I want to show you the logged in version. This is the demo, which doesn't have everything. But yeah, every time you floss your teeth, you go in and you log that you flossed. And then if you haven't flossed or haven't logged a floss in, right now it's a week, then you get a reminder email saying you need to floss your teeth. Otherwise, they'll rot and fall out of your head. The email doesn't actually say that, but it probably should. I think I can sign in. How do I? Okay, let me turn it off for a second. Okay. I gotta get used to the studio mode. It's different. I never use it, but it makes sense. Alright. So now I'm signed in, not into the demo anymore. So when you're signed in, It still works the same. You just click or tap on the day and it changes. I have it locked out so you can't edit after more than a week has passed, I think it is, or like the calendar weeks, you can't go back further than one, I think is how it's set up. I know I said that weird, but you're only allowed to enter data for up to a week prior, a calendar week prior. And before that, it's not editable. So if you don't floss your teeth, you can't just go in and change your historical data when you have to. Presumably, this would be used maybe by people to show their dentist how often they floss, or for me, it's just for myself to get reminders if I haven't flossed, because it's not something that I do every single day, and I can sometimes forget or just like be busy and not think about it, and it's not healthy. I think, like from my personal experience, when there's been a period of time where I haven't flossed for a long time, my gums start to get infected or just unhealthy. There's like buildup of gunk, bacterial residue. Like, I know it's one person's anecdotal evidence, but I think flossing is something that should be done regularly to maintain good gum health. I find that when I floss at least once a week, that I feel better, like my mouth health, and I almost never get cavities, which I think is good. I also don't drink soda pop very often, so that could be a factor, but so right now on the account I'm signed into, email reminders are off. You just click the button, they turn on or back off. So when the feature is set to on, you'll receive an email reminder once per day at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. If you've not logged a floss in over a week, click the text to toggle it on or off. So, like, that works great for me personally because I want to get the email around 9 p.m. Eastern Time so that I remember to floss that night. But not everyone lives in Michigan on the same time schedule as me, so that feature needs to be modified. So I already wrote down what I want to do today. The objective for Flossing.app, which is the website. It's free to sign up, free to use. You just put in any email address that can receive email and you get a login link. You don't need a password or anything. I try to make it as easy to use as possible. So right now the site sends out an email every day at 9 p.m. Eastern Time to anyone who's not logged a floss within the past week. It runs as a cron job. It runs once per day, scheduled at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on the server. What I want it to do is to let the user that is signed in set their time zone in UTC format. And then also, I think they should be able to select the hour of the day at which they want to receive the email alert. And then maybe also be able to customize the number of days missed to trigger the alert threshold. So right now it's just hard-coded to 7 days, and maybe people want to get reminded after 3 days or 5 days or 7 days. And that made me think, is there some kind of triangular toggle? Like, I don't even know how I would be able to represent that. But like how you have a normal toggle that goes back and forth, if there was, oh, I don't think, is my mouse captured? Oh yeah, I think it is. Like if you could click the little circle and it goes to a, oh, that part of the window's blocked. Oh, I can capture a paint window capture, paint. It's only for a moment. So my thought was to have a toggle switch shaped like a triangle with 3 states. It's like normally on a toggle switch, no, that's not it. It's like that. And then you get circle on one side that can switch back and forth. My thought was it would be cool if you could have a like a UI design where it's a triangle. So like oh my goodness. So I had also thought, oh, maybe I'll just have a switch like this, a toggle switch where you can go between 3 and 7. But then another part of me was like, oh, what if they don't want 3 days? What if they want 5 days? Like, you can't just have a toggle switch for 3 options. But what if it were a triangle? Then you could toggle between the 3. But then I also learned there are 3-state toggle switches. It's not completely lined up right, but that's the general idea. Something like that. So you got a 3-state, but it's all in one line, and it just toggles between the 3 possible values instead of using a larger horizontal triangle. Which was my initial instinct, but I think a 3-step single toggle is something that makes more sense. So that's something I'm going to look at implementing. So we don't need that. So what I need to figure out today, which hopefully I'll be motivated by live streaming it, will be Modifying the cron job to run once per hour instead of once per day. I guess I already kind of had that here. So I need to change the cron job to run once per hour and then change the selection criteria that it runs to use the user's set time zone and time setting and only send them an alert at the correct time. So you have to figure out the math using their desired time and time zone and the current time. It hurt my brain to just figure out what I needed to write down in plain English, which is when I'm trying to figure out something complex, which I think this is. For me, it's complex. I want to make sure that I have a good understanding in my brain of what I'm trying to accomplish before I just start writing code and running off into the woods trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing. I want to say it was maybe Ben Franklin who said an ounce of preparation saves a pound of pain or something like that. I don't remember. So basically what I want is for this page, if someone turns email reminders on, I want it to show down here a time zone setting in UTC. UTC is like the newest term for what used to be GMT. It's Coordinated Universal Time. If it's Coordinated Universal Time, I wonder why it's UTC and not CUT. It's probably French or Spanish or something, huh? I'm looking at the Wikipedia page. It's usually some sort of like Universal Time Central, or who knows. Unimportant. It is not important for what I'm trying to do today, what it stands for, but it's like I'm in Michigan, we're UTC -5 or GMT -5. It's the same thing. I think we're -5 right now. With daylight savings, who knows? And the server I'm running this on is in Michigan, so it runs on Eastern Time also. So I got to take all that into consideration. And I think this is going to be a challenge. Quite a challenge for me to figure out. So we shall see how it goes. This part is really easy. I got to figure out like modifying the database structure. I guess maybe that's a good place to start. I need to figure out in the database structure for okay. What changes need to be made to the database structure to accomplish this? And I pulled out the code I'm using, more or less. So each user needs to have a time zone set, which is UTC minus 12 to UTC plus 12. I think that is how it works. UTC, oh, it looks like minus 11 to plus. Oh no, there's the international dateline. Minus 12 to plus 12. That makes sense because there's 24 hours a day. And it split up. I'm going to use military time units. A 24-hour day, I think that'll be less confusing than having AM and PM. I apologize if you can hear the dogs barking in the background. Really annoying. Like, if you ever have dogs, please train them to not bark at everything and like have respect for your neighbors and your people around you. There's a lot of bad dog owners out there, and they inflict a lot of stress and anxiety and discomfort on people. I don't want to talk about it. It's a distraction. I have my fan on, partially for the heat, partially for the noise. It helps make the dogs less audible. It derailed me. Each user needs to have a time zone set and an hour of the day in military time units for when they want to receive their alert email. So how do I want to accomplish this? I'm not gonna have every like. There's like weird half-hour time zones. That's not gonna happen. I'm just doing -12 to +12. That's close enough. People can figure it out. If you need half-hour precision on your flossing reminders, you can develop your own app. Or pay me and I'll add it as a feature, but I'm not spending time to figure out all that. All right. So we're saying on this screen, I need to change this main.php page. So if this is set to on, it'll have 2 email reminder configuration dropdowns, which I think is reasonable. It's not probably the most good looking way to do it. I don't know how else to. Maybe I'll put it in some sort of container so it's not just on a plain background. Once I get it in there, I can figure out how to make it look nice. The functionality is the important thing. I think. So it's going to have 2 drop downs. Not a safe button, a save button. They're different things. Something like set alert or configure alert. I think I can just take 2 integer inputs and yeah. So if that's how I'm gonna do it, then I need 2 new fields. Time zone. Which is an int, and alert hour, also an int. I just had a thought that a lot of people wear headphones when they're working on stuff, and that would probably be a good way to block out barking dogs off in the distance and all the other distracting noises that interrupt your workflow, your flow state. Because a lot of, I think, for me at least, a lot of getting work done is about getting into a flow state where you're just processing and moving from one step to the next and planning steps one ahead of another as you're going. It's like I think it was a TED Talk or something I watched from someone who was like a professional surfer, and they talked about how in order to be a good surfer, you have to be in this flow state where you're just processing everything that's happening as it happens and responding instinctually, like from muscle memory and instinct, and because you're responding to such a dynamic situation, and people can apply that to other things like software development or writing or reading or whatever, where you want to get into this flow state, the state of like mental focus where you're just totally engaged with the problem at hand, and all of your brain's resources are dedicated to observing and responding and just like going into the thing and processing it. And then anything that can break your flow state, any distractions like your cell phone making noise or dogs barking or like people knocking on the door or whatever else, like all of that can be if you can manage it and figure out like that, like the things that are causing your flow state to be disrupted, and then figure out solutions to work around that, then you can be a lot more productive. And I think part of it too is just like knowing what it feels like when you're in your flow state and observing what interrupts it. And yeah, I think live streaming is, for something like this, the more that I do it, it seems like maybe it's not not the best for productivity, because I feel like having to be mindful of what's happening with the live stream, like observing what's happening with the live stream, and then also having to think about what to say. That's a distraction. Like the more that I just work through this process of explaining out loud what I want to do, it makes me want to not do the coding part on stream. But we'll see how it goes. I gotta try it to see how much I like it. Before I do that, I want to refill my water and get some cookies. I feel like the immediately available glucose or whatever, the sugars in the cookies are I think it helps me think. I don't know if that's valid science or not, but I'm going to take a short break. It's been 35 minutes too. It's good to take a break just to stretch your legs and rest your eyes. It's not good to sit for long periods of time. So I'm going to switch on to a break here. That should have sound. There we go. No, we aren't. Why did that not turn on? Oh boy. There's no sound. Alright. I'll be back in a few minutes. Oh, because I didn't do the transition. I think it's probably what it was. Alright. Did that... I didn't turn the sound on. Well, we'll do it that way then. Alright, I'll be back. Alright. I am back. and I had some thoughts, which is something that tends to happen, I think, when you're taking a break, which is part of why taking a break is good. Not just like for health reasons, it is great, like to rest your eyes and stretch your legs and keep your blood flowing everywhere, but also to give your brain some time to process. I think you'll have ideas and thoughts that you wouldn't have otherwise if you just kept grinding through whatever you're trying to get through. The thought I had was that I'm not going to be able to show a lot of the code because it has database credentials and database schema stuff that I don't really want to just show. Like, I went through and I changed the important stuff in this code. This is the code that sends the emails. So this is what the cron job runs. And this query is what I'm going to have to modify to figure out. Like, this is going to run once per hour instead of once per day. So as part of the selection criteria, I need to have like the user's selected hour, if that is equal to that's what I got to figure out, the math of if they're eligible to receive an email in this cycle. Let me make sure. Current timestamp. Yeah, so it's 7:22, which is the time here in Michigan. I think yeah. Right now GMT minus 5. Okay. So what I have is the current hour value of 0 through 23. Oh boy. Sorry, I'm probably not going to talk as much as I should because I'm thinking harder than my brain is used to. And to think and to talk at the same time is a lot more challenging for me. It's not something that I'm used to. So I might have long periods of silence and then long periods of silence before you hear anything from me. Maybe a cookie will help. Cookies often help. Something about the immediate sugar entering my bloodstream and rushing to my brain, giving energy to my neurons or whatever cells are in my brain, figuring this stuff out. I think that helped. My thought for how to proceed is to take it one step at a time. So the first logic check, I guess, would be if the current hour value of the clock is equal to the desired contact hour. If I just completely disregard the existence of time zones and the modification required for that, this is the logic that would be running. If I wanted to run this once per hour and I would have the user's desired contact hour be stored in the database, and then the cron job that runs will check if the current hour value is equal to the desired contact hour. So now I need to think, how do these time zone modifiers affect that? And this is the part of the logic that I'm having the most difficulty wrapping my brain around. Because the server is UTC minus 5 hours. I guess a good way to solve this would be an example. Or maybe a couple examples. Time zone is in Eastern time. We're just going to do Central Time. Because I know that's -6. Let's say they want to get emailed at 11 a.m. so they can floss at lunch if they forgot. How about that? So what do I need to know? The relative time zone. How do I figure that out? Because the server is running in Eastern time. Oh, this is. This is like the worst Sudoku ever. That's not a good comparison. I don't even know what this is like. it's a really complex and weird abstract thing to think about for me, like relative time zones and running a check, like uh like if the user's time zone is -5, so it's the value difference from -5. So do I just add 5? And that'll be... I think because Michigan's UTC -5. I think if I add 5 to the user's setting, that will tell me how many hours off from the server's time the user is. I think I phrased that correctly. Time for another cookie. Yeah, superpower my brain with sugar for this one. I'll get through this. Somehow I'll figure this out. I think I'm making good progress. The desired email time will be from 0 to 23. Is that it? Is that it? How does that work out? So when it's wrapping around the time of day, I need negative values to get I think that'll work. If I had 24. Because this gives me -2. I think that is correct and accurate. I think this will take care of that situation where we end up with a negative value because of the time zone adjustment. Or a value greater than 23. So that has to be taken into account also. Wow. All right. I think that this is the solution. I think that's... Oh, do I have the... It was blocked. Sorry. I think this is the solution. So if I have the user set their time zone and the hour that they want to receive the email in their specific time zone, then when I'm running the hourly selection, I need to make sure their desired hour is equal to 24 plus the current hour value on the server from 0 to 23, plus, this doesn't even have to be in parentheses because it's all addition, but I just did it that way for my brain to see this is what's happening in this particular section. I'm taking their set time zone and then I'm adding 5 to get the time zone, like the relative value of their time zone to the time zone of the server. And then all that added together, we take the modulus value, which is the remainder. So divide it by 24 hours. So if the value is greater than 24, it'll, like if it's 26, like 26 modulus 24 is 2. Is it? It's 22 or 24 and then a remainder of 2. 26 minus 24 is 2. That's what a modulus does. It gives you the remainder value. Very useful. I use modulus a lot, and I like it. So then if their desired hour setting matches the result of all that math, then they get the email. I think that works. I think that's going to work. I just have to translate it all into MySQL. I need to modify the database to have these additional fields, and then I need to modify the flossing page to there's no good spot to put that, huh? Well, anyway, the point that I'm getting at is My brain is tired from doing all that thinking. Even with the addition of the cookies, I thought that might give me more power to get through all this. So as I sat eating that cookie and thinking, reflecting, it made me appreciate how beneficial it was to write down those test cases. I'm trying to get it. All right. So that you can see everything. Yeah, if I hadn't gone through and created these example users with what settings they would have and then use that to figure out what math needed to happen, I feel like I would have been spinning my wheels for a long time. So I guess that's a good tip, a good lesson learned from today is that if you're trying to figure out the logic for a problem, to figure out what needs to happen, like just describe it in plain English and write out, like figure out what variables you have and then figure out what the result of combining those variables should be and create test cases or example situations where you know what variables are there, and then from that the math was pretty obvious, I think, for what had to be calculated. And then because I had a variety of test cases, I immediately discovered the situation where the resulting value would be outside of the range of what I could handle. Like if I'm expecting this to run with the hour value of from 0 to 23, having a -2 or a 26 or whatever, they would just never get emails. So figuring out that I needed to do the modulus for the remainder, I think, was a pretty big step in the right direction, a pretty good result from this exercise. So I think I had probably bitten off more than I could chew for today. I didn't really know how to get to where I wanted to be. I had a pretty good idea of where I wanted to be. Like I know how I want the page to work, but I didn't know what it would take to make the page work. So I started out with 12 lines or maybe 13, and then just went through and did all this, and it took something like 60 lines of thinking and processing to to figure out what the next steps are going to be. And I don't think I'm going to take those steps tonight, just because it's 8 o'clock here. Doing all this logic processing, I think this would probably be considered the architecture or the engineering of this project. For me, that side of things is a lot more mentally taxing. And to also be live streaming or broadcasting, recording while that is happening is extra challenging. So also with the consideration that these next steps are going to require me doing some work on things that would reveal the database credentials or details about the database schema that I don't really want to just publish openly at this point in time. I'm thinking probably my next step is going to be taken offline, where I get these pages created. I don't even know if I'll do like a stream showing it working. I'll think about it. But this stream showed the architecture and the engineering of what is going on to make this happen, and then the coding part, because I've already figured out like what needs to happen in the database and the selection criteria logic. I think the coding part should hopefully be a lot easier. It's like planning ahead and putting in the design time saves so much effort when you're actually like getting in there and writing the code. Like if I tried to just start writing the code to make this work, it would be a hot mess. If I just started adding fields to the database without knowing like the type and the size and all that, or even the name, it would be not good. So I think I'm going to be done with the live stream for now, and I think that's good progress for today for what my mental resources were like. I think we got a lot done figuring out the math. That's awesome. So yeah, nobody stopped by, so thank you to anyone in the future who watches this. I don't know how educational it'll be or useful, but having to explain the process out loud helps me, I think, learn more or in a different way. Like having to verbalize my thought process is a good exercise. I think all this helps me become better at engineering and architecture and coding, all the software type skills that are required to make a project like this functional. So yeah, I think that's going to be the end of that, and we'll maybe I'll try to do a stream in the future showing off the new features. Because once this is done, it'll be ready. This whole project will be ready for me to start, I guess, publicizing. I had made it for myself. The functionality was for me to use it for myself. But I've found it to be useful. I've found it to be beneficial in helping me to have a consistent flossing schedule, and I think with these additional features, it'll be just that much better, and it'll finally be useful for a global audience. So I'm excited to get this rolled out and done. And yeah, thank you to anyone who uses it, who tries it out. The address is Flossing.app. It just runs right in your browser. You don't have to install anything. Just an email address to sign up. No password. It's just one sign-in link that you get through email. And it might save you from getting some cavities and having to get dental work, which is very expensive. So yeah. Hopefully, if you have teeth, you'll check it out, because I think it'll be beneficial for pretty much anyone who has teeth who is not in a habit of flossing them every day or every week necessarily. So yeah, cool beans. I hope that you have a good one.